Secret number one, don't freak out. So here's the thing. As people, we are just always out of balance. Sometimes it's just a little bit out of balance. Sometimes it's a lot out of balance. And as people, we also go through cycles. Sometimes they're short cycles. Sometimes they're long cycles. So it's normal to be out of balance, to freak out, to go through cycles, and to adapt. When we're out of balance or we're going through a cycle, as humans, we kind of view that as conflict. The standard operating equipment that we come with is to either flee, run away, or fight it out. So that's kind of tends to be like a freak out sort of thing, either running or fleeing. So some natural cycles that we go through. It happens to be springtime here. So the grass is growing like mad. I have to cut the grass every four days. But by the time August comes around, it's going to be dry and sunny, and I'll cut the grass every 14 days. So the cycle goes from 4 days to 14 days. Think of another cycle like the economy. The economy tends to run in 8-year cycles, sometimes 10 years, sometimes 12 years, sometimes 20 years. But, from a positive economy to a recession. And so our economy goes through cycles. Think of families. Families go through cycles. We call them generations. So my father passed away 2 years ago. That's the end of a generation. We're in my generation. I had a grandson last fall. It's the beginning of a new generation. So it's also human to go through these cycles. So what kind of cycle are we going through now? Well, one way to look at it, this is not the way to look at it, but one way to look at it is how we feel in America about being united or divided. And so we've been through periods of low, if we call low being divided, as in today. Some people would feel like, wow, how close are we to another civil war? Frankly, I don't know, but I really would not like to move much closer. The period before this that was a low of perhaps feeling divided was the Great Depression, where 20% unemployment for a long time. The low before that would be considered perhaps the Civil War. And then the division before that was for the War of Independence, where about a third of the population wanted to have independence from England. A third of the population wanted to stay with England, and a third was in the middle, didn't really care. We'll go either way. And then, of course, the one before that was how we were actually founded on division, we can say, because the people who came from Europe to first settle here many of them left for reasons of religious divide. They just didn't feel welcome in Europe, and they came to America. So we have these cycles of division. What's the point? The point is that don't freak out. We've seen these cycles before. I haven't seen it before because I wasn't around for the Great Depression, the previous division. And so we may think like, oh, we're going to freak out. But if we really take a look at the long history, we're able to get through this. And remarkably, also, as we'll see as we go through the different secrets, our founders created a pretty neat system that helps us get through these cycles. Some of our founders felt that having some sort of significant division or crisis was important for every generation, because they knew that if we got complacent, that we wouldn't have this sense of awe about our own freedom. And so that having to go through a crisis of a sort would give us each generation ownership of freedom. So another reason not to freak out. We're earning our freedom again. And so in the book, we created a list of significant progress that we as humans have made since the beginning of time. One of the most significant things that happens in the course of human history is we go from being kind of Stone Age hunters and gatherers and nomadic moving around people. We figure out that, oh, we can farm and we can domesticate animals. So now we can settle into our tents, which become maybe stone structures or log structures, and we become little villages. 3000 BC, we start to, be musical people with strings. So the first stringed harp in Egypt. In the 1st century, the Romans figured out how to make an arched bridge. 1440, the printing press in Germany. In approximately 1760, the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution is about making stuff by mechanizing things. It created this thing called storage. So now, with the Industrial Revolution, what happens is we can make stuff, and we can make a lot of stuff. So from the mid-1700s all the way to present day, we learned how to make a lot of stuff. And what becomes important about that is then we want to sell a lot of stuff. And we can create a lot of wealth, which is really good because it reduces a lot of poverty. 1921, also a turning point, the invention of the television. So now we can watch something in our own home. Finally, in 1990, the World Wide Web. Along that whole history, we as humans we've already shown a tendency to divide ourselves in all ages along the way. But we also have this ability to struggle and to climb through these things and to create new, wonderful solutions that helps us as people grow and hopefully be happier. So, secret number 1, don't freak out. Our message is, throughout the course of history, as humans, we have this way of persevering. So, yes, it's normal to freak out. But when we stack up all of the history, we will get through this. And the thing that we want to really point out through it is we will get through this together, which brings us to, well, what's really going on with this period that we're experiencing of the divide? So we're at this crisis of trust. We have information about the pandemic that seems to be motivated by this. We have information about the pandemic that seems to be motivated by this. It's really rather remarkable because, after all, it is a pandemic. It should be very factual, should be very scientific, right? But even a pandemic, we have found a way to drive a wedge and separate the information. So again, we think that's kind of telling to the level of distrust that we have. By the end of Secret 4, we will have dug to the roots of this division in America. And then for the remainder secrets, we will build on how we get ourselves back on track, how we add to the track, and how we go to the next level of freedom. At this point, we're rather fond of Martin Luther King's quote, where he said, our scientific powers have outrun our spiritual powers. We have guided missiles and misguided men. We tend to see some truth in that statement. And it's kind of a function of the Industrial Revolution again. And, we really enjoy making these strides forward scientifically. As we reflect on the founders' statements of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, we see the spiritual wisdom in that. With life, we are created by our Creator in the Creator's image. That's fairly universal feeling through all of the religions. The second, liberty, that we are created free. So who are we to take away freedoms from each other, or for a government to take it away, or from a dictator to take it away, or an owner to take away our freedoms? Being in this together is part of our happiness. So we, the people, is connected with pursuit of happiness. Now, later in the book, we're going to mention that Harvard has been doing an 80-year study on what helps people be happy. And it is that being together that drives our happiness. So, where are we as Americans today? We have this division going on. And so we're unhappy. Now, don't get us wrong. There are times to go it alone, and there are times to go it together. So we're back to balance. And now you understand. Secret number one, don't freak out. We can do this together.